What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. Another Friday, another episode of Why Are We Bullish? Awesome panel this evening. All newcomers to the show. I always love weeks like this, where it's fresh perspectives from everybody. So excited. We're going to do intros in a moment, but this is live. Anything can happen. So I defer to my friend Bill here.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
If you have not already, like, subscribe, share, all those things help a ton getting this content in front of more eyeballs. I am Ben with the BTC Sessions. This is your daily session.
HODL the Bitcoin.
Before we bring in our guests, let's take a quick look at where we are in the market. Now, this is timechaincalendar.com. We're sitting at 29,355 US dollars per coin. A single US dollar will grab you at 3,407 sats. 92.119 of all Bitcoin have in mind. That's 19.36 million of them. And in terms of fees, we had an influx of transactions going on. I don't know if the JPEG dudes got busy or something, but nonetheless, next block, 44 sats per byte. Even if you're waiting a bit, 24 sats per byte is what it looks like right now. So just be aware, use Lightning if possible, use RBF, all that good stuff. And make sure you attach a fee higher than, probably safer in the 4 sats per byte region. It's purging anything below 2 sats per byte, 1.87 actually. So just be aware. Shout out to sponsor of the show, HodlHodl.com. If you're stacking sats and you've got a few parties in mind, like peer-to-peer, instant self-custody, no KYC, then HodlHodl is for you. You can sign up in minutes with nothing more than an email address. The flow is super easy. Choose a currency, choose a payment method, choose an amount, and starting offers and trading KYC sats peer-to-peer. They also have a lending platform, nothing ever rehypothecated, if that is up your alley, but check them out. Links are down below. When you do stack those non-KYC, get them into the best damn hardware on the market. I love everything CoinKite's doing, and the Cold Card Mark IV is an absolute beast. A Lord of the Rings length tutorial on the thing, so check it out. But they also have awesome other stuff. Tap signer, sats cards, block clocks, open dimes, all kinds of great stuff. And coming pretty soon, the Cold Card Q1 looks insane. So if you want to reserve that or check out anything, coinkite.com, use code BTC Sessions for 5% off everything in the store. If you are looking to go beyond single sig and dive into multi-sig, perhaps an assisted or collaborative multi-sig setup, Nunchuk, it's hard to beat what Nunchuk is doing. Everything is mobile. It's easy to set up. They walk you through every single step of the way. It works with all the awesome CoinKite stuff like Tap Signer and Cold Card and a ton of other hardware options as well. And it has baked planning, so you know that your sats get to the next of kin if something were to happen to you. And one of my other favorite things, no KYC with this either, which differentiates them from the other collaborative multi-sig options out there. So check them out, nunchuk.io. I also have a tutorial on their whole setup there. And finally, Start9, love these guys. Your sovereign computing solution. You can run a device and set up your whole Bitcoin stack, Bitcoin Core, Lightning Node, mempool.space, join market, all of that stuff. You can host your own data like passwords, files, photos. You can run Nostr relays and Nostr clients, all kinds of stuff you can do with this. Check them out, start9.com, the Embassy One entry level, basic unit. And then the Pro is like, hey, I want to host my life on this thing, and you can't go wrong with it. So check them out. And yeah, huge shout out to them. And with that, I'm going to stop my rambling. I got to get everybody in. So welcoming everybody for their first time around, plate licking accelerationist in all caps. Welcome to the show. We've got Peter saying, and Peter, I don't want to butcher your last name. How do I properly say your last name? Oh, you're muted. Hold on. Wait.
Thank you. 3 years into the pandemic, I'm figuring out the mute button. Saint Onge. It is pure Quebec right there.
Saint Onge. All right. And we've also got Austin Craig. Welcome to the show. Everybody, again, first timers coming to the show. Very excited to have you all. I think quick introductions are in order. So, I'm just gonna call and refer to you as Plate. I like it. So, Plate, can you give yourself a little intro? Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me in the first place. So yeah, by day, I'm a fiat financial advisor, legacy finance. I manage about $35 million for about 100 high net worth clients. So basically, what I tell my friends is I help rich people pay less in taxes. But by night, I tweet about Bitcoin as the plate licking pleb. Recently changed to plate licking accelerationist. We can talk about that a little bit later. But what I'm mostly going to talk about today is my role with the Canadian Bitcoin Conference. I'm an official hype man. I tweet about the conference. I do podcasts about the conference, and just in general, spread the good word. Thanks for having me.
Dude, very excited. Awesome. I'll toss it to Austin. Austin, can you give yourself a little intro? Who are you? What do you do?
I'm Austin. I've been in Bitcoin off and on for a decade. In 2013, I did a documentary about Bitcoin. That's my background, is media production. And I wanted to get involved, but I'm not a programmer or cryptographer or anything like that. So me and my wife, right after our honeymoon, lived on Bitcoin for 90 days using nothing else, and made a documentary film about that called Life on Bitcoin. If you were around 10 years ago, you probably heard about it, but now it's a historical document. And more recently, I have run a YouTube channel called To The Point, where I started out talking about broader cryptocurrency things, but really just kept coming back to Bitcoin as like, this is the only thing that really matters. I wanted it to have broad appeal, and so I started out talking about like NFTs, and then the feedback I got is like, you sound angry when you talk about NFTs, Austin. And I was like, forget it. I'm not even going to try to address that anymore. I'm just going to talk about Bitcoin.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. And I gotta, just because there's going to be some people watching that are going to be like, I think I recall that. Yeah, this is Life on Bitcoin over on IMDb. Yeah. Released in is that accurate? Released in 2014.
Filmed in 2013, post-production for way longer than we wanted. I think we got it in wide release in 2015.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, it was, I remember seeing you guys as you were putting it together, watching it back then. Like the main place people went to was like Reddit for all the posts. And so, I saw a lot of posts about this on Reddit. It was making the rounds. And so, yeah, anyways, stoked to have you. And let's do our final intro. Peter, now that we know how to properly pronounce your last name, can you give yourself a little intro? Who are you? What do you do?
I'm Peter St. Onge. I've been writing about Bitcoin since 2014. I actually wrote the very first pro-Bitcoin article at the Mises Institute. Before that, they were all gold bugs, so I had to talk them into it. Jeff Deist was supported, by the way, so props to him. He gave me permission, handed the keys to the lunatic. All right, I'm an economist at the Heritage Foundation, fellow at the Mises Institute. I make daily videos on economics and freedom, and I am active on Twitter.
I've been loving the short Twitter videos that you've been dropping. Seems like they're blowing up.
I used to teach at a business school, and MBA students drink a lot, right? So I used to do like these little shticks in the beginning of class to kind of make it relevant for everybody. So I'd be like, okay, why is this bank collapsing? Why, whatever. And I did those for years. And my wife was like, well, why don't you put one of those online? So turns out it's not only hungover MBA students who want to hear that stuff.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, gents, thank you all so much for being here. Everybody watching, of course, this is Why Are We Bullish? If you're unfamiliar, the flow of the show, very simple idea behind it. Each one of us comes with a reason for being bullish, some sort of topic that's top of mind, something we're excited about. And so the flow of the show is somebody's going to drop a reason why they're bullish. After their little rant, we're all together going to riff on that reason. And then finally, we're going to rotate to the next person. So reason, riff, rotate until we've all had a turn. Very simple. And so I'm going to get us started today really quick. And the reason for being bullish centers around what's known as an Uncle Jim So if you don't know the term, Uncle Jim, effectively meaning like I guess a caretaker and an elder that would take care of people in their Bitcoin journey. And you can Uncle Jim in many ways, but a lot of that centers around helping people get their Bitcoin infrastructure sorted. And so some of the ways that you can Uncle Jim is you can set up complicated infrastructure that somebody else might not be capable of doing themselves yet, in particular, close friends and family members, people that you know in your day-to-day life and that trust, and you trust them, and you can help them by having things like backups for them or walking them through their hardware, whatever it may be. And so there's two things that make me excited in the realm of Uncle Jim's, because I mean, everybody's goal, I think, and goal for every person, hopefully would be to get to the point where you don't necessarily need an Uncle Jim, but people are going to need Uncle Jims along their journey as they learn. And so, I did a video on an Uncle Jim setup this week, but there's a second thing I want to touch on as well. So the first Uncle Jim piece of infrastructure that I think is awesome is something called BIP85. And so this was my tutorial that I dropped earlier this week. And so BIP85 basically means that, and I used it in the context of using it with a cold card wallet, but by no means specific to cold card. You can use it with other options like seed signer and so on and so forth. But you have, whenever you set up a cold card or any Bitcoin wallet, you have your seed phrase, 24 words, 24 English words. And usually that's kind of the long and the short of it for most people. Some people might add a pass, and that's about as far as they go. But with BIP85, what it does is it allows you to create your initial seed phrase. And then all of a sudden that seed phrase kind of becomes like the parent seed phrase, or like the master seed phrase. And from that, you can derive up to 10,000 independent seed phrases. So these would be like all the children seed phrases. And the way that it works is all of those 10,000 potential seed phrases that you generate from the one master seed phrase are entirely independent, in the way that if somebody got a hold of that child seed, there's no way that they could work backwards to compromise the main master seed. And so it's like all of these like sub accounts that are in no way necessarily directly related to the master, other than if you have that seed. And so in the context of being an Uncle Jim, I mean, it's not just useful for Uncle Jim. You could say, oh, I have my cold card and that's my cold storage, but also I'm going to use BIP85 to create the keys for my hot wallets. So if I got a hot wallet on my phone, all of a sudden I need to write down another seed phrase because I have my cold card and my backup of my cold card. If I delete my phone wallet or I smash my phone, I just go back to my cold card and say, regenerate account number 1, and it's right there. And even if I lose my cold card, I just take this original seed from it, put it back into a new cold card and say read account number 1, and it's right there for me. But in the context of Uncle Jim, maybe you have a family member, maybe your mom is getting into Bitcoin and she wants to hold it herself, encouraging her to hold it herself. And she's got a hardware wallet as well. Maybe the process of that, you generate a seed phrase from your cold card, load it into her hardware, also give her the seed phrase and say, like, here's your device, here's your seed phrase, keep them both safe. If you lose both of these, your money's gone. And put that fear of God into her. But at the same time, if she's irresponsible and she loses both of those things or just forgets where they were, you can then be that third line of defense. You go back and say, okay, what was mom's account? It was number 2, regenerate account 2. All right, mom, here's your seed phrase. Never do that again. But you're that last line of defense. And so you can be an Uncle Jim for your family members in that way. Obviously, you want to restrict this to, direct kind of interpersonal relationships that are solid there. But in terms of like for my family and for, again, hot wallets and things like that, segregating savings accounts, segregating privacy accounts, all of that stuff, BIP85 is powerful. So I love that. But there's a second thing in the realm of Uncle Jim's that I wanted to touch on. And by the way, if anybody watching right now has Zeus Wallet phone, then maybe maybe go and open up Zeus Wallet right now. Just saying. Okay, so anyways, Lightning Node Connect. It's very interesting. And so what that is and by the way, I think somebody's telling me that the audio is a little jittery, so I apologize. But Lightning Node Connect, if you have a Lightning node, this is available on, I think, Umbrel and MyNode and a bunch of other options. Nonetheless, you can effectively, rather than sending family members to Wallet of Satoshi, custodial Lightning wallet, you can manage your own custodial Lightning sessions here and basically be their liquidity. So my mom wants a Lightning wallet. I'm going to hit create new session, live demo. I'm just going to call it, by the way. I want this to be, if I can do that, custom. I'm going to say this is going to be a custodial account. It does all the settings for me. Okay. And I'm going to open this up here, but any person watching this with Zeus will be able to scan as a custodial account and now use it on their phone. And so they'll be able to receive to it. And basically it's using my Lightning node's liquidity to receive transactions. Now, I'm not saying that go and use this. I'm probably going to get rid of afterwards. But if somebody was using this, they would scan this. They wouldn't have access to any of the funds on the Lightning node, but they'd be able to use the channels to actually receive transactions and send transactions. So it would be like a segregated little account on my own Lightning node. And so I could then Uncle Jim for all of my, close family members that want Lightning but don't want to set up their own nodes. But I want them to not have custodial Lightning options. And so with this, it allows me to do it in a couple clicks. And I just say, here, open up Zeus, scan this. Great, you've got a Lightning wallet. It's non-custodial. If anything goes wrong with Wallet of Satoshi, you're kind of hooped. If anything goes wrong with my Lightning node, you can come punch me in the face. So it gives you that it segregates the risk. And when you live in a world where a lot of this is happening, instead of everyone resorting to easy custodial options, like large custodial options, again, that risk is very compartmentalized. And if something goes wrong, then one, you can go talk to the person that's managing it directly. But two, it backed a massive amount of Bitcoin users. It's localized. So anyways, I'm super bullish on the tools coming down the pike for those that wish to be Uncle Jims for their close friends and family, and also the tools that will enable them to not have to be Uncle Jims anymore. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to open it up to you guys. I don't know. How do you feel about current Bitcoin infrastructure, the ease with which newcomers can use it, and then tools like this that will make it less dependent on centralized third parties? And anybody can jump in.
Yeah, I think it's tricky, at least in the US, where I'm based. There's this kind of ongoing jihad against the fiat on-ramps, right? And I think traditionally those have carried a lot of the weight for newbies to kind of ease them in. Whether or not you trust Coinbase or Kraken, the point is, that's kind of a gateway drug for a lot of people. It's a very brokerage-like experience. And so I think that to a large extent, developers have been able to focus on people who are much more advanced It can deal with, more setup than, at least in places like the US. I think that there's going to be a lot of demand. That's a good thing, I think, so, tools like Strike that are very newbie friendly, obviously ones that are decentralized, I think are going to have an advantage in the emerging regulatory climate. And then meanwhile, of course, overseas, sort of on the other side of it, there are a lot of jurisdictions that are explicitly opening up. Europe, Hong Kong, Dubai just announced that they're going to be a lot more open to, they're looking at crypto, of course, because that's where the money is for them. But anyway, so, I think it's a mixed bag, but certainly in the US, I think that there is kind of a new importance to focus on user-friendly and specifically decentralized ones that the bastards can't get their hands on.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think solutions like an Uncle Jim solution are going to be necessary. I have associates who know that I've been into this for a decade, and they've heard me over the years. And some of them over that time have finally been persuaded that there's something going on here. But then they try to get involved. And as soon as they encounter self-custody, they get scared off. I know somebody, friend and associate, who finally started buying in on some Bitcoin and held a pretty substantial amount. And then when the Silicon Valley Bank stuff started to go around on Twitter, it was a Thursday night, I saw it all happening. And we all learned last year firsthand and by observation the problems with financial contagion. And I got scared because I knew that my friends still had their huge amount of Bitcoin on an exchange, even though I talked to them about it and been like, listen, we bought you a hardware wallet. You need to own it yourself. You need to take it into self-custody. They didn't want to do that because it was too technical. And then I told them about, listen, you're going to wake up tomorrow morning and there's going to be news about something called Silicon Valley Bank. And believe it or not, this may actually impact your ability to withdraw your Bitcoin to transact with it, right? I didn't know if the liquidity issues were going to hit their exchange. So I called them and talked to them about this, trying to convince them to withdraw to self-custody, and it just scared them so much that they sold it all that night at basically the absolute bottom of the market. Within days it had gone up 10 grand. This issue of the Uncle Jim situation, like, I'm his Uncle Jim. If I could have been sitting next to him to help him do this, and if I had great tools to do that, the guy would probably be a bit richer today than he is. He's got melting dollars in his bank account, but he would have had some Bitcoin in self-custody that would have been much, much better.
Yeah. The irony of the knee-jerk reaction of, okay, I've got coin, and you hear that something is happening and there's an issue, and the knee-jerk reaction of people that are still kind of in the midst of fiat land and haven't been orange-pilled yet is, oh my God, get to dollars and then get the dollars like out to my bank account, when like that's
a banking crisis, guys. Like,
that's the risky move. It's like, you hear a bank is collapsing, it might affect exchanges. The safest thing to do in the realm of, custodians don't have enough money to cover depositors, is get a asset into your own hands. And if you already have Bitcoin, then that's hit that withdraw button quick, not sell the dollars and then put it in a bank account. Like, it's tough. Again, it's hard to get out of that mindset. There's a lot of fiat mindset that are hard to depart from. And like, like my wife, even just the other day, we were setting savings goals, and we have an inheritance multi-sig, like the we were talking about. I have an inheritance thing for our kids now set up, and we put sats into it. I'm like, she was doing like stickers, stars and stuff like that for goals, and we'll put a sticker every time we and so she had these other goals of like, oh, we're doing this and we're saving for this and it's in dollars, and I'm like, well, this one has to be in sats. And she was like, she had such a hard time being like, but what is that in dollars? I'm like, well, it will change, but like we need to think of saving in sats. Like, this is our goal, because as we add more sats to this, Like if you put the stars up based on how many dollars we have now, that can be different later, but we always have the same amount of sats. And so she's getting through this hurdle of thinking instead of dollars. And it's a tough one to do, just like the tough one of this, you know, this safety is not in the banks. And yeah, it's, I don't know. Plate, I'm curious your thoughts on this so far.
Yeah, so so a good story, Austin. That's crazy, and you're right, Ben. It's like a huge transition for people to make, just to think that way, to think in sats instead of dollars, right? And I think what we have seen, despite your friend there selling, Austin, is when these banks collapse, it accelerates things, right? And that's part of the reason why I have accelerationists here, is because it's the bad things that happen that really orange pill people the most. Right, it's a bank fails, people lose what they thought was the safest thing ever, their savings account, right? Or they have to have the Fed step in to save it. People get scared about that stuff, so I totally understand. But to go back to the original of what you're bullish about, the Uncle Ben, I just want to say, I think indirectly, and not in the two ways that you just showed on the screen there, I think you're like most of Bitcoin Twitter's Uncle Ben. Or Uncle Jim.
Oh, not Uncle Ben. I don't want to get shot in the street here.
But that's kind of you, because every time I have a question about whether it's Sparrow or my cold card or something like that, I tweet it out, and I get some people saying things, but most people just link to one of your videos and one of your tutorials. So you're like the unofficial Uncle Jim of Bitcoin Twitter. It's kind of
That's
awesome.
totally true. I built my node from your tutorials, so thank you for all the instruction.
If you had told me that the guy whose documentary I watched initially coming into Bitcoin would use one of my tutorials a decade later, that would have been, I would have laughed in your face, but we are. So thanks for that. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's again, like that. Again, with all the tools that are happening now, it's getting to the point where with a knowledge of Bitcoin, you can become that Uncle Jim. Like, you know, there's a few more steps. Obviously, like BIP 85 is, it takes a little bit of know-how, but like that Lightning thing that I just showed, like if you have a Lightning node that you set up, I think that was like clicks to set up a custodial account for, you know, somebody, and they're then relying on in your Lightning node. That's pretty powerful, and to do that for your fam, that's massive. Like when you think about it, who would you rather trust? All your family having Lightning wallets with Wallet of Satoshi, or them trust you and the hardware that you have sitting on your shelf in your home, you know, or your voltage node or whatever it may be. But like, you know, a little bit, take a bit of personal responsibility and look out for your friends and family. Like, I mean, those tools are getting better. It's awesome. But yeah, I want to bring up a comment here. Obviously, self-custody is daunting at first, but once you figured out it's ridiculous. Even easier if you use BIP 85 for all other wallets, Paulie said. And yeah, like if you can wrap your head around BIP 85, or just like figure out where the menus are, which is basically the video that I made, all of a sudden your self-custody stack becomes a cold card seed phrase, and then literally every wallet you use just defaults to that, and you don't have to do any more thinking. You're not guarding 30 seed phrases for various purposes and multi-sigs and all this stuff. It's like, no, there's all my stuff, and like, you know, it's protected with a passphrase, and I'm set. So, I'll round out this topic, but I'm gonna just say to anybody watching here, if you're relatively, like, if you're kind of like feeling mid-level in Bitcoin, you understand a number of things, make that extra leap, start learning some of these Uncle Jim methods, and then you can be that guy for your close family members, or even if you're not guarding anything for them, you're helping them through their onboarding process. You're becoming that kind of, you're becoming a guy where they can go to or girl where they can go to and ask you questions and actually feel relatively confident and comfortable with what they're doing. So I'll leave that there. We're going to do a rotation here. And I'm going to toss it to Plate first. Plate, I'm going to just cue you up with a simple question. Why are you bullish?
Awesome. Thank you. Well, the big reason I want to come today is talk with the conference. That's where I'll start. I'm bullish about the first ever Canadian Bitcoin conference. Basically, it came to pass at a meetup in Whitby, Ontario, I don't know, a year and a half ago, where a fellow local pleb, kind of approached me and said, "Hey, my wife is an event organizer, and we want to start the first Canadian Bitcoin conference." At that time, okay, there's 3 U.S. Conferences, right? Miami, BitBlock Boom, and then Pacific too. I think there's one in Europe at the time and things like that, but nothing in Canada. So it's like, okay, yeah, let's get this started. You know what I mean? Let's be the first people to do this, and let's do what we need to do to make it happen. So really bullish that that's happening at all in the first place. So Ben's got the website up here. We have an amazing list of speakers and everything like that. This is going to be a little different from a lot of the other conferences in that it will be more intimate, right? So it's Bitcoin only, right? For Bitcoiners, by Bitcoiners. I like to say high signal, low noise, right? So you can see just a massive list of speakers we have there. I think there's like 35 or something totally confirmed at this point. But it's June 17th and 18th, right? So 1.5 days. Fun fact is that the 17th of June is the 90th day for Balaji's $1 million bet. So I think that could work out really well potentially. So that would be extremely bullish. But yeah, it's in downtown Toronto, the Chelsea Hotel. It's CanadianBitcoinConf.com for tickets. But yeah, some of the speakers we have Greg Foss, we got Tomer Strolate, we got Frank Holmes, we got Troy Cross. It's just huge names that you all know, right? Lawrence Lepard, Luke Broyles, we got Tom and Nick Carrazza, Brad Mills. Francis Pulio, right? Bull Bitcoin is the headline sponsor as well. Really excited to see him. Ben, you're going to be there, right? Doing a cold card demo with D from CoinKite. So you can be Uncle Jim there for a bunch of people, room full of people. We got Eric Yakes. We have, who else is there? Stefan Livera was most recently announced. I don't know if you can see on there. There's if you go to tickets, there's basically 3 options for when you get tickets. So if you click purchase tickets, there is just get a regular ticket, right? But then there's the bundled ticket with Bitcoin Rodeo right out in Calgary. So that way you're getting a discount if you're getting both tickets to both conferences.
Which, by the way, Bitcoin Rodeo is where I live. So I'm excited to have spillover there from hopefully people make their way up to Toronto and then come out to the mountains afterwards. So yeah, man.
Yeah, really looking forward to that. And then the last thing is the build your own Bitcoin miner. So a company called Decentral. Only 5 spots left, I see. Wow. They're bringing in all the parts, and then they're going to take you step by step into building a miner yourself, which is pretty tight in my opinion. So it's just going to be a great event. Check it out. Follow us on Twitter, right? It's at CDN Bitcoin Conf. We're tweeting about it. We're still adding new speakers. There's going to be it looks like there's going to be a very prominent Bitcoiner coming in virtually. That's not announced yet, but it's going to be a good time, right? And then there's of course the plate licking after party, which will be down the road too. You can follow me on Twitter if you want to learn more about that. But that's free, and that's it'll be about 150 plebs there, just having a couple of drinks and relaxing there.
Dude, Canada needs this. Given the year we had last year, Canada sorely needs this. And so I'm super stoked to see a bunch of Bitcoiners make their way out to Toronto, and then again, I hope as well out to Calgary afterwards, because of all of the Western nations that could use a little orange pilling. I don't know how many bank accounts you need to see closed before you go stack a few sats. And I mean, and you can speak to this. Last year, I mean, if I wasn't already orange pilled enough, and if I wasn't already averse to having any money in a bank account enough, it sure as hell cemented it for me last year. And I was speaking with some people about this today. I was talking with a bunch of the BTC Pay server guys, and yeah, like I'm effectively on a Bitcoin standard now. Like I earn Bitcoin. I'd say 90% of my income is Bitcoin. And then some dollars come in. I still have a bank account and a credit card while they let me, but outside of that, yeah, like, I mean, it felt nice, not nice. That's the wrong word, but, as shit started hitting the fan last year, it was at least comforting to know that if it push came to shove and they did shut down my bank account, that, well, there's a few $100 for you. That would have been the extent of it. And I would have had to jump through hoops to figure out how I would cover certain expenses and get payments where they need to go. But my money would not be gone. It was accessible. And that was the important part. So, yeah. Canada, you need Bitcoin.
Yeah. I like that you said that, because, I think one of the best orange pill moments, or the best things in this world that can orange pill people, is a tyrannical government. So I think you're right? When bank accounts were frozen, a lot of people got orange pill at that time, right? People who knew about Bitcoin then took the next step to self-custody. People who already self-custody took the next step and went into, multi-sig or something like that, right? But a lot of light bulbs went off when that happened. So I think that there's a good ratio of Bitcoiners to tyranny, right? It's like a 1-to-1 ratio. I think I've heard that before. So I think that's why we kind of have a lot of great Canadian Bitcoiners, and that's why the event is almost like putting itself together for us, because people know that Canada needs Bitcoin.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll let you other gents chime in.
You guys are making me think that I need to make another documentary, but instead of talking about the future is Bitcoin, talk about the terror of CBDCs and centrally controlled finance.
Yeah.
Because I try to tell people about that literally today. So I got a haircut, went to the barber this afternoon, 3 hours ago. Barber asked me what I do. I said, I talk to people about Bitcoin. It's kind of all I do. And he asked me, do you think that the future is digital money? And I said, that is a foregone conclusion. That will absolutely happen. The question is what kind of digital money we're going to have. Are we going to have free and open systems like Bitcoin, or are we going to have centrally controlled systems? And then I told him what CBDCs were. And I'm obviously coming from a place of extreme bias. Mm-hmm. I am very pro-Bitcoin and very anti-CBDC. But I was trying to drive home that one of those is a dystopian nightmare, and the other one is pretty awesome and totally works, and you can get eyeballs deep in it right now today. And I'm not sure I got the idea across, but using examples like the ones you just talked about, right? Revoking the bank accounts of Canadian truckers, or something like the Cyprus bail-in from 2013. We have historical precedent for the abuse of these powers. I feel like illustrating the problems with the CBDC by appealing to the historical examples could convey that message way more effectively. And like you said, tyranny, orange pills people. You genuinely have the gears turning right now. Like, maybe I need to go make another movie, spend a year putting that together.
You should call the movie like accelerationism or something like that.
Yeah. Well, and that might get people thinking about AI, which is a whole other topic, but is kind of related in ways.
Peter, I want to get your take.
Yeah, one of the criticisms that shitcoiners level against Bitcoin sometimes, they say that, you guys keep changing the narrative, right? So first it's counterparty risk, and then it's inflation, and it's tyranny and CBDCs, and it's bank collapses. It's like, yeah, put that together, man. I mean, it's a dessert topping in a floor wax, like whatever ails you, whatever the government is screwing up in your life, it's you get yourself a Bitcoin. And I mean, in a way, with the bank collapses now, we're coming full circle, right? I mean, that was the Genesis block, and here we are, what is it, 15 years later, and we're back at square one because nothing changed. Right, that was like an existential crisis for really the entire globe. The U.S. got herpes, but it gave it to everybody else. And all these regulators came in with the PhDs. They said, we're going to fix this. Never again. Here we are 15 years later. We got a perfect rewind of it. We've stacked on 70% of world GDP. We basically doubled world GDP, partly because they, threw trillions the last time. It's a complete disaster, and every single time they screw it up, the answer is the same. Bitcoin fixes this.
Yeah. Again, I got to give a shout out to the show's #1 fan. He's in the chat. He was absent last week, but I'm glad to have him back. He watches the show regularly. Hates Bitcoin, but he always loves popping in to tell us how wrong we are. David Wong would like to say that is a waste of money. Bitcoin has no intrinsic value and is not backed up by anything. CBDC is the digital currency. And then he also says, no chance any government will adopt Bitcoin. David, I hate to tell you, but that's already happened. But nonetheless, it doesn't matter if they do. Made for them. It's made for the people that they govern. So yeah, David, never change. Keep coming back. Glad you're here.
And when you decide to change your mind, open arms.
Yeah,
happy to have you.
We're always here. I feel like he's got all the orange pills in his cheek. He refuses to swallow. So like he'll one day, but nonetheless, dude. So Plate. Again, that website, if you want to just tell people, I'll bring it up again, but it is CanadianBitcoinConf.com. Any other quick things you want to throw out there for people to check out? Like it's what were the dates again?
So it's June 17th and 18th. So it's a Saturday and half a day Sunday. So it's coming up quick. I think that's like 52 or 51 days away or something like that. To be honest, at this point, I'm thinking we might run out of tickets at some point. So I would get on it. Take a look through the speaker list. The agenda, if it's not posted already, will be posted very soon. You got to pick your which breakout stages you want to be in, right? So there's limited room for the different workshops, right? So if you want to see BT sessions IRL, teaching you how to set up your cold card, you gotta sign up quick for that because it's probably just about booked up. But yeah, there, CanadianBitcoinConf.com, but then also CDN Bitcoin Conf for Twitter too, to get all the updates.
Awesome. Well, yeah, if you're in Toronto or nearby or want to take a flight and get there and partake in some Canadian Bitcoin goodness, then make it down and consider swinging by Calgary in early July and sticking around for Stampede too. So awesome. All right, well, we're gonna do a rotation, and I'm gonna toss it down to Austin, and dude, I'm gonna cue you up with the question. Why are you bullish?
I am bullish because I think the world is facing a lot of instability in numerous ways, but specifically the one that I think I want to talk about is AI. Now, let me back up and give a little bit of context about how I think. I tend to think at a 30,000-foot level, and I get lost in the weeds. If I go down, I'm on ground level. But at a 30,000-foot level, I'm very much at home. I like looking at the big picture of things. The competing impulse I have is shiny objects and getting distracted. And so I said I've been in and out of Bitcoin. I was way into Bitcoin in 2013, and then I went and did something else. I produced a TV show that had nothing to do with Bitcoin. It was technology and creativity, but it was not Bitcoin. And then I worked for a crypto company in 2017 and 2018. And then, I kept kind of coming back to Bitcoin over the years, but kept new things popping up, and they were always grabbing my interest. The thing that has my interest right now is AI, and I'm certainly not the only one. A lot of people have noticed how much this is accelerated. Our friend, the plate licking accelerationist, maybe has an opinion here on the acceleration of AI and what it's going to do to how we live. I come from a video production background, and I'm looking at AI video production right now. Have any of you seen what's happening with text to video in AI?
I've heard some things and maybe seen a couple examples, but yeah, I have a feeling I don't fully understand.
Okay. Text to video is a very early nascent technology right now, and it's exactly what it sounds like. I just type in words and it spits out a video of the thing I described. And it's in full motion. If you describe person dancing across a ballroom floor, it's not a static image. It's two people ballroom dancing across a ballroom floor. This technology right now is in the exact same place that text to image was a year ago. And so a lot of people are not really paying attention to this, because that state of affairs is, it's not going to fool anybody. It's a mangled David Cronenberg human flesh mess of a person dancing across the ballroom floor. It's not photorealistic. But you look at where text to image has come in the past year. 1 year ago, that technology couldn't fool anybody. It was mangled and ugly, and it was a novelty. Today, it is producing crystal clear, photo perfect images based on a short paragraph of text, and anybody can do it. I am predicting that we are going to see the exact same progression for text to video. So I'm guessing that in 1 year, the technology will have advanced enough that anybody will be able to produce totally believable video from a short text input. And the overwhelming torrent of, we've dealt with misinformation and disinformation in the internet in the last few years. I think since the 2016 presidential election in the US, we've all kind of been aware of that. I think we're about to see it accelerate and get much worse, in that we can't trust images or videos like we might have previously. And in an environment where you're facing tyranny, the internet is rife with lies, and you're not sure what you can trust, I think people are going to gravitate towards things that are reliable. And Bitcoin, despite its price volatility, it's getting much more reliable, and it's functioning exactly the same way, and it is frankly unkillable at this point. I think more and more people are going to start to realize that as the rest of the world gets more and more bonkers. We were just talking about the banking crisis, right? Like, banks are supposed to be the most staid, true, steady, permanent things in existence. Do you know why banks build with the stone Roman pillars? They do that so that they look permanent, so that they look like they've been there forever, because the last thing you want is your bank disappearing overnight. They do that for the air of permanence. That kind of institution is the one failing right now. And technology is going to make everything else on the internet even crazier. I think that kind of technological instability and the economic fallout from that is going to drive people towards systems that they can rely on. And Bitcoin is the best one I can think of.
I think you're right. I also think there's another implication to this. I think initially it's a clusterfuck, but then it becomes a good thing. I think we're at a point where people are still grappling with the fact that we have instant worldwide communication. We see that with like the flailing news networks trying to figure out like viewership, and they wonder why people are shitting on them when they feed us stories that any person that actually knows about a particular field realize that they just have no idea what they're talking about in so many instances. And like for Bitcoiners, this is why Bitcoiners so are so I guess questioning of any sort of mainstream news outlet is because they see Bitcoin coverage and they go, holy Jesus, if they are that wrong on this thing that I know a lot about, what am I assuming, or what have I been assuming they were right about up until this point? When, like, I don't know, I'm not an expert.
Are you familiar with the name for this phenomenon? There's a name for exactly what you're talking about.
No. What is it?
Michael Crichton, the novelist, coined this term. It's called Gell-Mann amnesia. When you are, and as he described it in the day of newspaper, you're reading the newspaper and you read an article about something that you have firsthand knowledge of, and it's totally wrong, factually incorrect, characterized incorrectly. Like, boy, they botched that. And then you turn the page to the next article, and so many people forget immediately that they just read inaccuracies on the subject that they understand personally. They turn the page and they assume that the rest of it must be accurate because that's what this is. It's the authority. I'm reading the authoritative narrative. Gell-Mann amnesia. Michael Crichton called it that.
Did
he? After, I believe, a physicist.
Did he use that in the book State of Fear?
Oh, I wish I knew. I haven't read that one.
It's interesting. It's about climate. Anyways, it's interesting. Anyways, yeah, I think, yeah, he's or on your topic here. I think what I was getting is when you can trust, when it's abundantly can trust nothing, people begin to have to think critically, and they need to begin thinking for themselves. And I think that's the outcome here. I think we get to a place where you're presented with information and you no longer go, oh, it's on TV. Of course, that's true. You then think, I wonder where that information came from. I mean, number one, first of all, not everybody can be an expert in everything. So the first thing you'll do is say, does this impact me? I think first off, people shed all the bullshit that they don't need to care about. But two, you then say, yes, this does impact me. And you begin to actually ask critical questions of the information that was presented to you. This matters to me. How did they come to that conclusion? What info they used? What were their sources? How did they actually compile that? And what was the actual scientific process that took place? Whatever it may be. How did they conduct the study? How did they do this census? Who did they ask? Where did this? All of that will come to fruition through a lack trust in media. And I think initially, like I said, that is an absolute clusterfuck. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now, the first inklings of, but with AI, it gets way worse. But eventually, you get a population that is much adept at processing information and coming to their own conclusions. And hopefully, because of that migrating towards truth. And if anything, an excellent source of truth, it's Bitcoin in a monetary and value sense. Yes, volatile in relation to dollars, but you can't. It's very, very difficult to dupe Bitcoin as a system because there's a set amount. It functions as the code is laid out, and you can't lie about that. And so you can cut off reality while fiat exists. But in a world that's on a Bitcoin standard, it's very difficult to fake economic reality for an extended period of time. So yeah, I love this. I love this topic. I've been dabbling in the AI just recently, just being like, oh, how do I need to write something up for the website or do a newsletter or something like that. And it helps me get a baseline and then like iterate from there. And then images for thumbnails. I've been blown away just being like, oh, normally I just like do a quick Google search, image search and try and find something relevant. Now I'm like, I want a picture of this and I have a picture of that. And it's unbelievable. Like I need a picture of a person ripping off a Band-Aid, but the Band-Aid looks like a dollar bill. Like you're never gonna find you can now do that. So anyways, it's astounding. So I'm curious everybody else's take. Maybe Peter, I don't know if you want to hop in here.
I think a lot of Bitcoiners are thinking about AI, and I agree. It's probably the most important invention since writing, maybe since fire. I think it is going to change everything. Economically, I'm very optimistic. Although my day job is trying to shrink government so the new jobs can actually come along, because that's what happened in previous industrial revolutions. But I think all of us are concerned about who is going to control AI. I think a lot of the discussion focuses on like what AI is going to do, and I think that's the wrong way to think about it. AI is a tool. It is like a gun. On its own, it does absolutely nothing. It is inert. It follows instructions. But it's one hell of a gun. And the question is, who is holding that gun? Who is controlling that AI? Who is programming it? Who is training it? Who is giving it instructions? And whoever controls the most powerful AI, I think is, or whoever that group is, they are Thanos. They own everything. And so it becomes very, very interesting who exactly is most likely going to control the most powerful AI. The world as it's currently structured, I think realistically, given budgets and ancillary infrastructure, you've got two candidates, which are either some organization in Silicon Valley or some organization in the Chinese version of Silicon Valley, Zhongguancun. And in either case, those are going to be owned by the respective governments. I very deeply dislike the US government. I even more deeply dislike the mainland Chinese government. So for me, sort of an existential question here is that I think a hell of a lot more depends on building out decentralized tools, right? There are billions of people in the world. There are many, I mean, just in the Bitcoin community, we've got tens of millions of people who are engineers, who are programmers. We collectively, I think, outweigh either of those chumps. But up until now, I think we've seen a lot of development in decentralized tools, stuff like Nostr, some utility coins, things like Filecoin, not as money, but as decentralized tools. And throughout this, I mean, it's exciting to see that progress and accelerate. And I think that Bitcoin specifically plays a critical role in that you can't organize large-scale activities without money. It is impossible. It doesn't happen. And Bitcoin is kind of the blood circulating in the decentralized economy. And that, to me, is our only hope. Otherwise, it is going to be either US government specifically or the Chinese government that literally controls every aspect of you. We will have a Chinese-style police state to the 1,000th power.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's really cool. And I like the way you guys put that. I'll just say quickly, with just touching on how you said that AI is could be related to misinformation and deep fakes of videos. People don't know what they can trust anymore. I kind of almost view that in the opposite way, because I know myself personally and some close friends and family, it's like when all the real serious, obvious disinformation started to come around, with COVID and different things like that, a lot of people just kind of said, you know what, I'm done with media. I'm not even going to read or watch that stuff anymore. And what people started to do is they just started to focus more on their families and their communities, you know what I mean, and draw back to what they can confirm, what they can know, so they're not always guessing, okay, is that real, is that fake? So I think if AI is going to accelerate all the misinformation, and if the Chinese and the US governments are controlling this stuff to, push their CBDCs and everything like that, I think it will just breed a lot of distrust to anything that has to do with the government at all, right? And I think it'll push more people to Bitcoin that way, right? I think learned experience is the best way to convert someone to Bitcoin. So I think that distrust over media and over everything and not knowing what's real and what's fake can push people to the things that they can rely upon, which is family and their local community and Bitcoin. So I think I'm bullish on AI for that reason, right? For people getting scared of AI and going to something that they can really trust.
It's going to take is traditional media reporting on something that created through AI as if it were fact. And then everybody will these guys have no idea either. They didn't to actually verify. They slip on Twitter, it was on whatever, and they shared it as fact, and it's now a story. And when they realize that no journalism is taking place, that dissolves. And many have already realized that in most cases, no journalism is taking place. But soon, when somebody and imagine the trolls fabricating stories with realistic looking video, audio, all that kind of stuff, seeding that out there, and just to see what news outlets cover it, and it becoming a story, and then that person after the fact saying, no, I literally made this up. You guys did no fact checking whatsoever. You've done none of your journalist duties, and you ran it as fact. And that's going to happen, I think. And so
it's interesting. Accelerationist, plate licking. I don't know how to refer to you. Plate licking accelerationist.
You can just call me Plate. Just Plate.
Plate. All right, Plate. It's interesting that you mentioned that people recede back to their family, their communities. It's been interesting to observe over the years the increasing affinity that the Bitcoin community has for things like local grass-fed beef. You know, like seemingly superficially totally opposite topics that shouldn't really have anything to do with each other, but it's exactly what you're talking about. It's this kind of set of values about, like, what can I trust, what can I rely on, what do I personally control in my life. And a lot of that comes down to, like, how do you keep yourself healthy, how do you manage your own money. And it's a lot of just a predisposition towards self-determination that ends up getting people really into these different sets of topics that look like they're not related, but somehow cluster together culturally.
Yeah, it's like when the people feel so out of control of everything in their life that they just focus so much on one thing they can control, right? Like the people who get, like, you know, diet obsessed or different things like that. Just you revert to the complete opposite of what hurt you or what made you distrust, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, again, and I think it's good. Bitcoin will gravitate towards the things that give us the greatest levels of trust. And you know, Bitcoin is communication. Money is communication. And if we started that as a base level and then build from there, then I don't know, maybe economics or the economic reality of the situation helps. Awesome. Does anybody want to close out any thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, well, I was going to mention, you know, Saifedean or Jordan Peterson, for that matter, right? There are a lot of people sort of in our space that I think indicate that there is a hunger that a lot of people have. You know, they feel like they've kind of been let down by the system. They've been let down by institutions. They've been lied to, sold a bill of goods. And the ethos of Bitcoin, you know, that you don't have to rely on people. You don't have to wait for somebody to hand it to you. You know, you go up and you build it yourself. I think that is very much in the current right now. I think Gen Z now is very much feeling. There was an article the other day talking about this explosion in Christian faith among young Gen Z. And I mean, these are people who grew up in schools that were very opposed to religion. And I mean, they are just completely rejecting what they feel like is brainwashing. And, you know, I think that Bitcoin at this point, I mean, it's really kind of a standard for people to gather to. You know, it's a huge middle finger to the establishment. And, you know, whether it's architecture, you know, there's a love in the Bitcoin community of traditional architecture, hatred of modern. I mean, there are just a lot of commonalities, you know, emphasis on a more traditional diet. There are a lot of commonalities that, you know, sort of bring people, I think, to a good place, which is self-reliance, self-confidence, making, you know, doing your own research, verify, don't just trust what you're told. So I'm optimistic about that.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, we're going to do a rotation. I realize my audio is apparently kind of messed up, but everybody else is fine. So we're just going to power through rotation. Peter, I'm going to keep it on you. Cue you up with the same question. Bullish.
Okay, so my bullish reason is for Bitcoin is that our leaders are morons. Everybody knows this. But they are currently simultaneously wrecking the national tokens in basically every country in the world and the fiat financial system at the same time. And so I think that this is, the initial moment. So I'm an Austrian economist, and Austrian economics was pretty much completely unknown until the 2008 crisis. I mean, that was really the big moment. It was a big moment for Ron Paul and, Austrian economics more broadly, and of course, Bitcoin. And, I think that sort of gave us the quintessential modern crisis that I think we're going to be seeing over and over until the end here. Maybe each one gets bigger and bigger until it finally breaks. But, we are replaying that top to bottom. I mean, it's almost like a script, like we're going through the exact same sequences we went through. And, we know what happened last time, which is that, of course, Bitcoin emerged on the scene. But, part of why Bitcoin came out is that there was this sudden intensification of interest in decentralized money, in decentralized tools in general, right? Bitcoin was an evolution, of course. There were people who had been studying this for some time. And, the government at the time was fortunately incompetent enough that it didn't actually go in and arrest them all. That's, I imagine why Satoshi went with a pseudonym, because he expected a knock on the door from the FBI or the Mounties, your friendly neighborhood Mounties. So anyway, right, I think at this point, we're going to basically have a rerun. We're going to see a massive increase in interest in Bitcoin. We're already seeing a ton of really powerful tools that I think are going to replace the existing sort of centralized fiat style on-ramps. So I think we have a very bright future these next 3 or 5 years.
Sorry.
No worries.
I'm around with my settings here. Yeah. Again, we're gonna see more. I agree. I think it's like fiat world can't help but drive people to Bitcoin, right? Like it's inherent in the system. The more it breaks, the more Bitcoin makes sense to people. I'm curious. Maybe I'll toss it to Austin if you want to further on Peter's.
Yeah. So you mentioned the 2008 crisis and Ron Paul. I very much got caught up in that, and I became a Ron Paul acolyte. I was a press agent for a Ron Paul super PAC. We got a modest amount of donation from, am I allowed to say? It's many years ago. It's 15 years ago. We got a modest donation from Peter Thiel at the time. Nice. And we were able to use that to try to do some video marketing in very influential voting areas to try to sway toward Ron Paul. Nice. And we did, but there was a lot of swaying that needed to happen. We obviously didn't change the outcome of that election. But it very much changed my view of the world. And I remember reading End the Fed at a time when nobody was talking really about the Fed. He was the only one. He was the guy who talked about this thing. The old man who seemed to be very irrationally upset about how we manage money. And in hindsight, it doesn't look irrational at all. My concern is anybody who's entered the conversation since then is probably not going to be fully aware of everything that happened back then. You kind of have to have been paying attention the whole time to connect the dots, right? Yeah. Certainly for anybody younger, like a Zoomer will not have been paying attention in 2008. And I feel like it's pretty important to connect the dots here, that this is not a new phenomenon. The problems we're encountering have all happened before. And as you said, Peter, nothing has changed. Our leaders said that, we're never going to let this happen again because we're going to keep kicking the can down the road. Like, you're not going to change anything? Nothing's really going to change? No, we're going to kick it down the road so we don't have to worry about it. Again, now I'm really thinking about another documentary. Like, it's worth painting the broader picture about what has happened before and how we got to where we are now. Because I don't think it's self-explanatory enough for somebody who's not acquainted with that particular piece of history from 2008.
That's a good point. I always forget how old I am. And yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a ton of people that don't have living memory of that garbage. And yeah, they need to hear the story of what the hell happened last time.
Yeah, like I was in college, right? And so
Yeah,
that was my
right.
kind of like, wow, politics exists. I'm getting excited about this. I have ideas. It was like my becoming an adult moment. But for anybody younger than that, they won't even remember. They'll have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can speak to that a little bit. I think I'm a little younger than you guys. In 2008, I think I was 15. So I like to say, for my generation, I think we were more influenced politically by, rather than Ron Paul, is more Ron Swanson, the the libertarian from Parks and Rec. But yeah, I think you guys are right in that. I think part of what I say about accelerationism is that this stuff is always going to keep happening. And I think lots of Bitcoiners kind of fall into that trap of saying, oh, well, we got to make sure there's a Republican president. It's way better than a Democrat. Or we got to make sure that we get Pierre Poilievre in Canada in there quicker. I like to call those decelerationist, because all they're going to do is slow down the inevitable, right? Eventually, we're getting more bank runs. We're getting more crises at the Fed. And the Bank of Canada are just going to bail out, right? So I don't see a huge point in putting a lot of time and energy into fighting that. I almost think we could kind of just opt out, watch it happen over there, and just kind of let the politicians do their thing and whatever they're going to do. You know what I mean? Because it's going to happen no matter what. It's almost like we got to kind of let them use their weight against them. I don't know what type of taekwondo that is or whatever, where you do that. But
you're right. Yeah, sometimes fighting them can feel like you are the guy giving the anesthesia so they can saw off the patient's limbs. You know, like sometimes you feel like, you know what? Okay, guys, let it rip. Just do what you're going to do. Do your zero carbon economy. Do it all, baby. All right, right now, right here, and let's see what happens so that the frog jumps.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a good one. That the frog jumps instead of getting boiled. Yeah. I like to say, like, eventually it's turning into a full out like communist dystopia, right? Personally, I'd rather that happen in my lifetime rather than in my grandchildren's lifetime. So I kind of think we should just, roll with the punches and let the statists do what statists are going to do.
It's I think I had another fellow accelerationist on recently, and he was like, if you know somebody in a bad relationship, do you want them to get through the argument and then just stick it out to see if things get better, or do you want them to make a clean break and then start rebuilding their life? It's going to suck. It's going to be awful. But would you rather them do that now or through another year of abuse? So
yeah, there's also a silver lining. Like if you look at cases where formerly civilized places collapse. So like there's a real nice case study from Sarajevo, Bosnia, right? They had a civil war back in the 90s. And before that, everybody in Sarajevo was a sissified yuppie, man. They were sitting there with their cashmere and their low-fat butter. And all of a sudden, man, I mean, they manned up. They got so freaking tough as nails. They were the badassest. There is something liberating, in a sense, about just letting that shit rip. I mean, people, you look around now, if you're North American, you look at the people around you, you're like, how could you people have done all of these glorious things in your history? You are pathetic. You're just little whining mopes. And no, they have it in them, but they need a challenge. There's collateral damage. It would be really nice if you could limit the collateral damage, but there is silver lining to pulling off the Band-Aid.
Yeah, I'm reminded of that meme. Strong men create easy times create weak men, weak men. What is it? Bad times, I guess. Yeah. I'm butchering the quote, but you know what I'm talking about. And a similar thing happened, if I understand correctly, in Rwanda. Now, nobody, please don't take this to mean that I want some kind of civil war genocide. Not what I'm saying. But Rwanda had their civil war, and it was bloody and awful and terrible. And everybody who got through that recognized how bloody and awful and terrible it was. If you look at Rwanda today, the YouTuber Mark Rober just released a video. He went to Rwanda and he looked at a startup there that is doing medical delivery via drone. which you don't have access to here. That's leapfrogging ahead of the United States.
Yep.
And he just had these most glowing things to say about the people of Rwanda, the culture of Rwanda. What an amazing place that was. I went to Japan a few years ago for a trip, and Japan was not in a great place in post-World War II. Japan now is amazing, unbelievably clean. I couldn't find a garbage to throw away my candy wrapper. Couldn't find one. I walked throughout the entirety of Tokyo for a full day, never saw one. I just kept the wrapper in my pocket. Clean city, everybody polite. None of this is to say I want us to go into some kind of terrible dystopia, but there's totally something to be said here for when people go through something really hard and get to the other side and realize how bad it was, they shape up real quick.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants anything really bad to happen or anything like that. I think the whole point is that it just might be better to have like a year or 3 years of really bad rather than like another 200 of this like 50-60% tax slavery. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just that much of just, governments blocking everything, blocking us progressing. You know what I mean? It's like, I personally would prefer to have a couple really bad years than, have the next 10 generations just get gradually worse and worse.
Yeah, and what we've seen with at least the U.S. economy and by virtue of the U.S. being the reserve currency and its influence in the world, globally, Peter, you've already spoken to this, nothing changed since 2008. Things have just progressively gotten worse. And I believe, they have gotten worse in a way where it's like snow accumulating at the top of a mountain. When the avalanche hits, it's going to be so much worse than it would have been if we had accelerated and actually changed and dealt with that stuff way back when.
Yeah. I agree. Like the ideal accelerations was not necessarily Sarajevo or Rwanda, but I think we're more like, and this is going to become topical since pretty much the whole world is going into recession now. There's a great book called The Forgotten Depression by Jim Grant and James Grant, I think. Grant's Interest Rate Observer. And he talks about the last time that, we had a big recession when government was still small enough that it couldn't do anything. And it was an astounding thing. Exactly that. We had, 20% unemployment. We had 50% deflation. And I mean, it was savage, companies just dropping like flies. And the government did absolutely nothing. There were a variety of reasons. The president was sick and his wife didn't really have the self-confidence. And there were a bunch of weird reasons why the U.S. did absolutely nothing. And poof, it was done. And then we had all through the roaring 20s. I mean, it was it's still looked back now as the great golden age of the 20th century. What built that was pain. So, you did not need to have, people getting killed in large numbers. But at some point, rather than kicking the can down the road, I think voters are hungry for that. They are willing to vote in people because they've been pushed so hard. They're willing to vote in people who will take those hard choices, who will go, it used to be called the liquidationist route. What was being liquidated was the crappy companies, okay? But anyway, they would go that route and they would just say, you know what? These are hard times. So, we gotta let the economy fix itself. We gotta let the people solve it, right? That was kind of the mentality 100 years ago, was that the government didn't come in with their stupid ideas and screw everything up. The people had to fix it. And so, people and people would. I mean, it's amazing. If people face a challenge, they are, capable of incredible things. But I think whether we get there because we collapse and the people have to take care of themselves by necessity, right? It would be a lot nicer to get there because the government just said, you know what, enough of this. What we're doing ain't working. They pull out. And at that point, the people fix them themselves. I think that would be a much better outcome than I think what we're all headed towards at the moment, which is kicking the can until the thing collapses, not by choice, but by necessity.
I think basically we're all talking about just getting back to a place of truth, right? We're talking about getting back to reality. And every time that we do something that can down the road, in whatever way, like that the snow builds, the avalanche is coming. It's just who does it hit? Right now, it's a shitty situation. It's gonna be bad or what? It's gonna be worse the longer you wait. So does it happen to yourself? Does it happen to your children? Does it happen to grandchildren? And so, like you were saying, the forgotten depression, there wasn't a lot of build. It sucked, crappy, but like you get through it quicker because you didn't allow the illusion to persist for too long. It self-corrected back to a place of reality. We have a system where can continue sowed indefinitely until it's just so catastrophic that everything and it's bad. This bad right now. It's pervasive everywhere. So yeah, I think when you hear people arguing for let's rip off the Band-Aid, it's because the Band-Aid is going to be much worse if we give it to our children or give it to our grandchildren. And nobody's keen on the pain that's going to be happening, but it's a necessity to return to reality before ever so detached from reality that it's impossible to deal with.
I don't have any plans to run for national office anytime soon, but if I did, rip off the Band-Aid might be a campaign slogan. I could run with that one. That's some good branding. It's short, it's pithy. I like it.
Accelerate.
I love it. Okay, so gentlemen, I imagine my still a little glitchy here, so I apologize, but I round out a little bit. But thing that I like to do at the end of each show, and I like to basically do a round of fun, but also do a round of recommend. And recommendation can be a life lesson you've learned, maybe through your experience in coin or something else. It can be a video, a film. It can be a device. It could be a blog. It could be anything. Something you think people watching will find value in. My final thoughts are just, I look forward to getting back to reality. I think Bitcoiners have already done this. I just think that the rest of the world is on its own trajectory, depending on the individual, of how quickly they'll realize what a clusterfuck everything is. But it will happen at different paces for different people. My recommendation, actually, and I've recommended him many times before, but he's going to be a guest at the Bitcoin conference. I'm going to recommend everybody read The Seventh Property by Eric Yakes. It's fucking legendary. I like to say that it's a more in-depth, fleshed out version of the Bitcoin standard, with the addition of some of the technical aspects of how Bitcoin works and why it works. And it's just a hell of a book. Eric's a legend. I can't wait to see him in person in Toronto. And read his book, The Seventh. It's excellent. With that played, I'm going to toss it to you. Any final recommendations?
So I guess first I'll just echo that with The Seventh Property. I've lent that to several $1 million plus clients of mine to try and orange pill rich people instead of my 30-year-old poor friends. But I think it's basically it's like the Bitcoin standard, but it's very professional and it's not grading in any way. I think a lot of normies pick up the Bitcoin standard and just see some of the, if they're a normie or if they're a leftist or something like that, it's kind of like they might put it down and not even read it. But the Seventh Property is just plain facts, not things like opinionated or anything like that. So it's really good. Okay, so for recommendations, I don't know if I can recommend anything to you guys. I feel like you're all much more experienced in life than I am. But I'll just say that for everyone listening, I would just say to put yourself out there. If you're interested in Bitcoin, but you don't know any Bitcoiners and you want to meet some people and things like that and get involved in the scene, Twitter's kind of a beautiful place in that it magnifies your tweets. If you can just start your own meetup, you're going to meet people. You start your own Bitcoin social node, right? So you actually have some people to talk to and to bounce ideas off of and to, get help with the tech side of things and everything like that. I would say just kind of get out of your shell and just put your thoughts out on the internet, because it leads to some pretty amazing things. In January of 2021, I was locked down, had just discovered Bitcoin like 2 months before, didn't know one Bitcoin or anybody who had ever owned Bitcoin. I just decided, I'm going to start tweeting and just talk to people and do whatever. And I've met some really, really cool people now and done some cool things. So I was telling everyone to just put yourself out there.
I love it. Great advice. I'll toss it down to Austin. Final thoughts, recommendations. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, first I want to echo and endorse what you just said. Twitter is a pretty amazing place, and I need to spend more time on Nostr. I'm not on there really in a meaningful way, and I need to. But Twitter is still pretty magical in that you can have these conversations about topics that you care about, that you think about, that you're passionate about. I live in Utah. I'm in a flyover state. I am not in a big town. And besides that, there are people around here who are into Bitcoin. There are meetups and have been for years, but I've got 3 small kids. I'm at home all the time with my kids, and I'm doing laundry and washing dishes and taking care of domestic responsibilities. So the only time I really have to have an adult conversation about stuff like this is time that I set aside. And most of that happens in the margins when I'm on Twitter. It's I can sit down for 2 minutes and I can see what people are tweeting and saying about this and be a part of the conversation. And doing just that in the margins of my life, I've been able to meet and connect with amazing people. Yeah. And it's been fantastic. And it's this form of intellectual stimulation that I just do not get naturally in my day-to-day life. So thanks to all of you for contributing to that. Deeply psychologically needed on my part. Very grateful. The thing that I'll recommend is not directly a Bitcoin thing per se, but go to the gym. Go to the gym and lift heavy weights. I grew up in a household where we didn't do sports. And when I got older and my, colleagues and classmates realized that I grew up in a household where that was just not part of our upbringing, they thought I was so weird. They're like, what did you guys talk about? And it's like, well, my dad's a lawyer. We read books. I read a lot of books. I thought of myself as a budding intellectual. And I'm growing up, I legitimately thought I am a man of the mind. I don't need to lift heavy things. I don't need to have a bustling, huge muscle beach body. And I was super skinny growing up. I did cross country. And then I had kids. I grew up, got married, had kids. And as soon as I had kids, I couldn't run anymore. And I couldn't maintain the modest, healthy lifestyle that I had. And I got in really terrible shape. And it impacted everything. I became anxious and depressed and tired all the time. And it's only been in the last year that I have started seriously working out and working on myself physically. My oldest is 7 years old, so I've been in a steady state of decline for at least that long. And I looked at myself in the mirror. I was like, this is not going to change on its own. I'm pushing 40. I gotta aggressively do something to turn this around. And just recently read Peter Attia's new book. I don't know if you've heard of him or are fans of his at all. Peter Attia is an MD, and he does the podcast Circuit. He's friends with Tim Ferriss and a bunch of other big names. But he just published a book called Outlive about how to live a long, not just a long life, but a long, active, healthy, happy, fulfilled life where you can do the things that you want to do until your final day. And it was such a good book and just really affirmed a lot of these things that I've only recently experienced myself as I've gotten in much better shape from going to the gym frequently. I feel better mentally, physically. I can do more. I can pick up my kids without feeling winded. I can walk up a flight of stairs without pausing at the top, and can't recommend it enough. My youthful idea that I was growing up to be an intellectual and that's all I needed, wrong, incorrect, false. We need to be strong of mind and body, and I'm trying to implement that right now.
I just bought that book while you were talking about it.
Oh, it's super good. It's super good. For people who are familiar with him, most of the book will be quite familiar in tone and subject matter, but I cannot recommend enough that you finish the book, because the last chapter is going to hit you like a brick wall. You're not going to see it coming. I'm not going to spoil anything, but you have to get through that last chapter because it is the most meaningful, sticky part of the entire book. That's the part you're going to remember. So by all means, I recommend everybody check it out, but please do read it to the end.
How do you spell the last name?
Attia, Peter Attia, Attia, I believe. He's a very online personality. He's not an unknown entity. He does lots of podcast interviews. He has his own podcast that is excellent. But the book is very much a culmination of his work over the years on what makes for a healthy, long life. What are the things we need to be thinking about, and how do we need to be thinking about them? Because a lot of what we do to address health right now, it comes down to, as with so many things, it's not just a matter of like having an answer. It's how do we approach the question? How are we thinking about this issue? And he spends a lot of time talking about that.
Since we're on the topic, throw in one that and that really helped in that realm for me. It's called Bigger, Leaner, Stronger. It's by Michael Matthews. Excellent read. It's a slog. You got to get through it, but it's practical knowledge. Practical knowledge, like how do you understand what you're taking into your body, what is required to muscle to be stronger. It is it all out, and it provides actual resources and tools to actually set out for yourself. So anyways, that's a solid well, and I feel from this king, it sounds like it pairs nicely with the other book, which I just purchased. So
it does.
Yeah.
I've read Bigger, Leaner, Stronger. Read it before I actually started implementing any of this. Probably should have started implementing as I was reading the book, but it was very, very pragmatic, very hands-on, and a really good primer for me to finally start putting my body in motion and getting there.
Awesome. Peter, I'm going to toss it to you last. Final recommendations. It's all yours.
All right, so I want to second the body stuff. Absolutely, I went to pot after my kids were born, and about once they're 5 or 6, you got your life back, and you can get your shit together. And also Twitter, it's a sheer joy. You can drop in. There's so many smart people now. Elon has freed the beast, so it's a glorious place. Okay, my recommendation is more psychological. Aim to fail more in life. The more I fail, the more mistakes I make, the better my life gets. If I think back to the periods of my life that I've made no mistakes, my life has been shit. I've been more or less just wasting time stamping. One of my favorite quotes is, if it's worth doing well, it's worth doing shitty until you get the hang of it. So in practice, everything you do it 80% and then move on and do the next challenge. If you did it over 80%, if you were perfect, you screwed up. Okay, you put too much onto it. Move on to the next challenge. Don't spend your life, running foot races with kindergartners. In other words, taking on challenges that are too easy for you. All right. If you're not screwing up, every time I kind of hit a wall, I say, okay, so I'm gonna start the rule, and the rule is I got to screw up 3 things a day. All right. No matter what it is, you got to screw up 3 times a day. If you did not screw up 3 times today, you failed. All right. You are not moving fast enough. You're not actually trying. So, yep, that's my life advice there.
I love it. I think that's great advice. Don't get complacent. All right, gentlemen, I'm going to round it out. I realize I again sound like an echoey weirdo, but I'll fix that for next time. Either way, I'm sure I've heard you guys crystal clear, and you had a lot of great things to say. So I'll just close out by saying thanks so much. It was an absolute pleasure. You're all back anytime, and it was a fantastic weekend.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you much for having us on.
Great chatting with you.
All right, cheers, guys. Talk to you soon. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Of course, again, apologies for the audio. I will get on that. Maybe I'll on how to fix your microphone midstream because I just failed to add that. But nonetheless, of course, follow all these gents. Their Twitter handles are down below, and through that, thing they're on Nostr. You can probably find their Nostr and pubs. A few little shout outs. Now, if you can like, subscribe, share, all that helps. You can hit up the previously mentioned stuff down below. HodlHodl, CoinKite, Nunchuk, Start 9. And who's going to be in Miami in less than 3 weeks now? Yeah, it's coming up quick. Anyways, it's going to be a blast. I'm excited, everybody down there. Let me know if you're going. If you are going, but yet to grab tickets, b.tc/conference. You can use code BTC Sessions for 10% off. It's quick though, so if you don't have quick yet, then maybe get on that. I think ticket prices go up again next week. I'm going to be down there for a couple things. Number one, just announced #Benico, #Touch the Tips. Nico, Simply Bitcoin, has been convinced by you guys to dye his hair. He's going to streak his hair blonde, and then we'll touch our tips together. And I imagine there will be a god candle like Bitcoin has never seen before because of that. Of course that would happen. Anyways, we're doing a little thing in Miami. You can go to btsessions.ca/tips and grab a ticket for that. Hilarious. And we're going to do a live show there, and I'm going to give away a bunch of swag. So there's going to be a bunch of stuff in there. Also, Cold Workshop, that's happening on the 17th of May. That is the Wednesday. It's from 1 to 5 p.m. It's going to be a blast. And yeah, basically, if you're new to cold cards, getting started, if you want to learn everything, be a pro, yeah, you can grab tickets. There's 3 tickets left. That's it. Just go to btcsessions.ca. Over on the right, there's the in-person workshop there. You can also book me for one-on-ones there, and there's a ton of free information, resources to get newbies started on Bitcoin to send off to anybody. You can do so there. And yeah, that's it. If you really liked what you saw, you can just drop me a Bitcoin at my tip page, btcsessions.ca/tips, or just from the main page, there's a little tip button. Anyways, from there, you can just choose your own adventure. You can help me run me a coffee. You can choose whatever you like. Anyways, it's all there. Enough of my rambling. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great weekend. I will see you guys next time for your daily session.
HODL the Bitcoin.